Big data. Seriously, it's the ultimate buzzword, right? You hear it thrown around in boardrooms, news headlines, tech blogs, pretty much everywhere. But what does it actually mean, beyond just a massive pile of information? Well, in this explainer, we're going to strip away all that jargon. We'll demystify the core concepts and look at exactly how organizations are leveraging this massive shift in tech to solve real-world, complex problems. Okay, let's dive right in.
To put things into perspective right out of the gate, let's talk about 500 terabytes. That is the amount of data Facebook generates in a single day. Just take a second to process the sheer weight of that. And when you factor in stuff like a single modern Boeing jet engine creating roughly 20 terabytes of information in just 1 hour of flight time, the scale we're dealing with becomes completely mind-numbing. We aren't just creating files anymore. We're literally streaming massive volumes of existence.
And mapping this out, we are blowing way past traditional storage metrics into entirely futuristic realms. We're soaring beyond terabytes and petabytes into exabytes, zettabytes, yottabytes, and even unofficial, almost comical terms like brontobytes and gigabytes. Our data universe is expanding so fast, so exponentially, that traditional relational databases, the very foundation of corporate IT for the last 40 years, they just buckle and break under the pressure.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, the true scale of data. Second, redefining big data. Third, stopping customer churn. Fourth, the big data ecosystem. And finally, critical success factors. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the true scale of data and where it actually comes from.
We used to think of data generation as this very active process, like employees typing on keyboards or customers filling out web forms. Well, not anymore. Today, the vast majority of information is actually passive data exhaust. It's flooding in continuously from GPS systems and delivery fleets, smart sensors in manufacturing plants, relentless web logs, social media APIs, medical telemetry, even global surveillance grids. Basically, every time you drive your car, walk past a sensor, or just let your smartphone ping a cell tower, you're generating this continuous, messy stream of data exhaust.
Moving right along to Section 2, redefining big data and shattering a few myths.
Okay, here is the reality check. Big data is actually a massive misnomer. If you're only focusing on the sheer volume, well, you don't really have a strategic asset. What you have is essentially a digital hoarding problem, one that costs an absolute fortune in server space and cooling, by the way. Instead, big data really describes collections defined by a huge variety of dimensions and complexities. It fundamentally changes the physics of how we store, process, and analyze information to get anything actually useful out of it.
These complexities are usually broken down into the famous V's. Yes, of course, we have volume, but the real challenges, they lie in the others. Variety means dealing with this messy, unstructured collision of text, video, audio, and machine logs. Velocity is the absolutely terrifying speed at which it all arrives. Then you've got veracity, the accuracy and trustworthiness of the data. Trying to ensure veracity while managing extreme velocity, that is literally one of the hardest engineering problems in tech today. But without a doubt, the single most critical element here is value. Petabytes of data just sitting idle are completely worthless. It's only when you apply advanced analytics to that massive volume that you actually extract real business worth.
Which brings us to Section 3, stopping customer churn, a very high-stakes business scenario.
Let's look at exactly how that value is extracted in a highly competitive market like the telecom industry, where keeping your customers is literally a matter of survival. When you start analyzing the top 20 paths to cancellation, you see this really fascinating story hidden in all the noise. Notice how a simple, seemingly isolated bill dispute at a call center, when compounded by, say, a negative interaction at a physical retail store a week later, creates a direct, highly predictable pipeline right to a canceled account. By tracking these complex, multi-channel interactions in real time, a company can step in, maybe with a personalized discount or an apology text, and literally save the relationship before the customer even decides to walk out the door.
Now, this concept of sessionizing data is incredibly powerful. Sessionizing just means grouping all of a single customer's disparate, scattered actions across different platforms into one logical timeline. Imagine being able to connect a user's frustrating mobile app crash directly with their irate customer support calls. By fusing those data points together, businesses go way beyond just preventing churn. They unlock massive improvements in process efficiency, discover entirely new products, maximize revenue, and tighten up enterprise risk management in ways that siloed, disconnected departments just never could.
Let's shift gears to Section 4, the big data ecosystem, and how this technology actually works under the hood.
So, let's trace the journey of this processing engine. It's really cool to see how unstructured, chaotic data inputs, like machine logs, web scrapes, raw social feeds, are ingested and filtered through a specialized platform. Instead of forcing all this raw data into neat, predefined tables right off the bat, it gets loaded into an integrated discovery environment. This is where data scientists can run lightning-fast, fail-fast hypothesis testing and complex pattern detection. Only after those insights are refined and proven do they get pushed out to the polished dashboards used by business executives. It's essentially a high-speed factory for manufacturing insight out of total chaos.
Now, the undisputed rock star of this modern ecosystem is Hadoop. Originally incubated at Yahoo and popularized by Google, Hadoop is an open-source framework that totally flipped the script on computing. Instead of relying on one massively expensive, custom-built supercomputer, Hadoop achieves high performance by distributing chunks of unstructured data across massive clusters of simple, everyday computers. And the true brilliance? It's in the fault tolerance. If one cheap hard drive in a cluster of thousands suddenly dies, the system doesn't crash. No way! The workload just seamlessly shifts over to another machine. It is an absolute game changer for scaling out cost-effectively.
Let's quickly bust some tech myths and clear up some common industry confusion. First off, Hadoop isn't just a single piece of software you install with a setup wizard. It's a sprawling ecosystem of different, specialized projects that interact together. The Hadoop Distributed File System, or HDFS, isn't a database. It's exactly what it sounds like, a file system that stores chunks of data across multiple machines. And MapReduce? It isn't an analytics tool. It's actually just the core control layer that coordinates and manages all those complex processing jobs across the clustered computers at the exact same time.
And this whole distributed ecosystem is supercharged by specific tech enablers that completely alter the speed of business. Take in-memory analytics, for example. By storing complete massive datasets directly in a server's RAM rather than on a slow spinning hard drive, query times drop from hours down to literal seconds. We're also seeing the rise of in-database analytics, which puts the mathematical processing power right next to where the data actually lives, eliminating those annoying network bottlenecks. Combined with grid computing and massively parallel processing, executives can now pivot strategies in real time based on data that is practically fresh out of the oven.
All right, moving to our final section, Section 5, Critical Success Factors, Bridging Tech and Business.
Here's the hard truth. You could have the most expensive, highly optimized Hadoop cluster on the planet, but if your C-suite still makes decisions based on gut feeling, your millions of dollars in tech investment are practically worthless. Success requires a solid data infrastructure and advanced analytics tools, for sure. But far more importantly, it requires a crystal-clear business need, unwavering executive sponsorship, and a fundamental shift toward a fact-based decision-making culture. Honestly, the technology is the easy part. Changing human corporate behavior, that's the real challenge.
And there are substantial, very human hurdles on this journey. Handling data volume and complex integration is a serious technical headache, sure. But the true bottlenecks, the ones that stop projects dead in their tracks, are usually things like data governance. We're talking navigating security, privacy regulations, and complex access constraints. Then there's the severe talent drought. The industry refers to highly skilled data scientists as unicorns for a reason. Finding professionals who have advanced statistical, math skills, deep computer science knowledge, and the business acumen to actually pilot these platforms, it's incredibly difficult and very, very expensive.
The technology exists right now to capture every single click, ping, swipe, and transaction. Your organization's data is arriving faster, in greater volumes, and in a wilder varieties than ever before in human history. So the real question isn't whether you have the servers to store it all. The question is, do you have the infrastructure, the talent, and most importantly, the culture brave enough to listen to the uncomfortable truths that your data might tell you? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.